Hi, welcome everyone. This episode of Scope is brought to you by American Photographic Artists and its Chicago chapter. APA is a not-for-profit organization for photographers who are primarily in the advertising, editorial, and commercial sectors. APA's mission is to help photographers succeed through the establishment of community, education, and advocacy. I have the pleasure of being a founder member of the APA's Diversity Committee, which hosts Scope. The series on diversity is designed to help us understand and consider the challenge of our peers and find solutions for better working environment. To learn more about Scope, about the Diversity Committee, and to become a member, visit apanational.org for more info. So thank you so much for joining us to talk about representation and diversity in the photo community. We have a very special guest with us today. Her name is Jigisha Bouverat, owner of Bouverat Collective. Brings a distinctive level of experience and a perspective from many sides of the industry. Before she became an agent, she was the director of the art production at TBWA Chiat Day. During her 18-plus years at the agency, she managed and mentored teams of art producers responsible for revolutionizing the creative and business practices in the industry. Jigisha worked with a diverse roster of emerging and established creators to produce some of the most memorable and celebrated advertising campaigns. Bouverat Collective emerged from a belief Jigisha developed over the course of her career, that representing globally diverse artists was important and necessary. To Jigisha, representation is more than a business relationship. It's a personal commitment and partnership that nurtures the development of each artist's creativity and culture. Jigisha is also the co-founder of Commune, a service committed to connecting art and commercial professionals. So we're very happy to have you here with us. And Martine Severin, the chair of our diversity committee, is going to be hosting and moderating this conversation. So let's welcome them both and let's have a start. Thank you.
Thank you, Edwin, for that lovely intro. Jigisha, I am so pleased and happy to chat with you. As Edwin rightfully said, my name is Martine Severin. I am the chair of the diversity committee that's bringing you Scope, and I am on the board of the Chicago chapter of APA. And I'm so pleased to chat with you, Jigisha, mainly because the last time we chatted with each other was in the middle of COVID through an APA seminar, not unlike this one, when we were talking about the state of the industry. And I think in some ways, what's been very interesting to me is that the state of the industry, how the reason we started the diversity committee and the reason why so many people have kind of pivoted in terms of the work that they're doing within the photo industry is in direct response to wanting to see diversity and representation in the industry itself. Most of this conversation that we're going to have will certainly dive into this very same topic, but I wanted to just go back a little bit and talk to you about how you came to start your own agency, because you were embedded in an agency and for most of your professional life. And so I'm really interested in that story. Can you tell me a little bit more about how that came about?
Yeah, and it's a pleasure to be here. I really love keeping the conversation about diversity going, as well as just all of the things that are happening in our industry. It's an exciting time, and COVID just kind of accelerated all of that. So I actually thought I was going to be a copywriter, and I came out of college and saw that there was a receptionist job at an agency in Venice. And I was like, oh, there's one big agency in Venice that I would want to work at. And so I was able to get a job at Chiat Day at the time, when it was really quite a creative hub. And I thought I wanted to be a writer, but once I got into an agency, and that's a whole other conversation of how we can get more diversity into advertising agencies, into brands in the production area, because you just don't know about that when you're in school. You don't learn about that through the normal channels. But I was lucky enough to get the job, and then I started, and I realized I saw this woman who was looking at portfolios, and I was an art history minor and loved photography. So I saw this woman, her name was Amy Mormon, she was looking at these portfolios, meeting with people coming in and out. And I just thought, what is this woman doing? Like, it looks interesting. I asked her, and she told me what her job was. She was, at the time they said art buyer, but she was an art producer. And I was like, whew, like, that's what I want to do. One thing I'll say, when I did walk into the agency, I really felt I became immersed in a world I really hadn't. I'm Indian. I was born in India. I came here when I was 4, and I really grew up in a fairly Indian community. I of course grew up in America, but you get kind of into your cultural pockets, and so not many people who are Indian go into the marketing world, into photography, because it's a little bit of a luxury in the sense of your parents want you to make a living and buy a home and not take the risk that the art and commerce industry kind of is sometimes, right? And I think that's the case for a lot of people, but I think it specifically really affects people of color and economic, and I was not. I had a good upbringing and was able to do the things I wanted to do, but it's still, you don't learn about these things because you're just not exposed. You're in a different pocket. So when I came into Chiat Day, for me, it was really a little bit of an eye awakening. I was like, whoa, there's not many people of color here, not any really, except, in the mailroom or in the accounting departments, but not in the creative departments, not in the production departments, and then when I became an art producer, and I really, was, and Chiat was amazing at trying to grow diversity. Even back then, they really had a sense of it. It just wasn't a pool of people weren't learning about it. But when I finally I was an account person, I was a project manager, and then I finally got to become an art producer. And then pretty much a few years after that, Amy Mormon left, and she recommended me to run the department. But during my time as an art producer at Chiat is really when I was able to see maybe what impact I could have on the industry, where there was a real gap. And it was, I didn't see enough women in the industry. I didn't see enough diversity, people of color and when I say industry, I'm saying art production. For me in that career, when I would look for photographers, when I would look for content creators, I just wasn't seeing the diversity, and it struck me almost immediately. But there was also really no way of finding it or searching for it. It just was that all the really great photographers that were getting all the jobs, and I started in the early 90s in art production, were all, men, primarily white. So it was great. I mean, there was amazing talent and we were able to learn a lot. But I think for me, what came out of that was that I really wanted to try to bring in more, diversity into our lists, into the agency, and even into my own department. I wanted to have more people of color in my department, have more diversity in my department. In all areas, gender, everything, so it was a long path. I was there 18, maybe, close to 20 years, more than that, if I count all the other jobs there. And I think by the time I was leaving, I did see some change was happening. But then when I left and I wanted to become an agent and represent artists, one of my absolute number one goals was to have a really diverse roster and to really look for good human beings, of course, but to look for great talent with a much wider gaze. And I use the word wider gaze because it's not that you have to choose here or here or here. And you should get the job based on the work you do and that your work is right for this project. And actually my friend Helen O'Neill is the one who said this to me, that it stuck to me, because, I was like, well, hon, how do you make your list now that we've all, been kind of, this has been brought to our attention. And she worked with me at Chiat. So we have and she said, I look at the list that my department makes, and then I go back and I make sure that list is not living in a really narrow lane. And I make sure I widen that lane and I make sure I bring in because, we're only, when the work is shown to a creative for a project or a client, we've narrowed it down to 25, 30, 40. The producers look at quite a bit. But are you looking in the places where you could find diversity? Are you only looking in the sort of areas where people pay to be seen? And so it's kind of driven by the economics there. And I loved what she said, because she said she really made an effort to make sure that list was a wide gaze, and it allowed her creatives to be able to see the variety of talent. And then whoever they choose kind of goes with, I think that's fair, and that's what we all want, So my roster to be talented, but I also wanted to connect with my roster. I wanted to feel like it felt like me. So my roster has, actually right now I have more women than men. I have, everybody from, Hispanic, Mexican to Iranian to Indian to Black to white to Turkish. Like I have and I think it's also being very global, feeling global, not living in your small pocket, but feeling global. And I think that lends itself to diversity anyway, right? So for me, that was really a big part of Bouverat Collective, was to have a wide gaze on the industry, and to be someone that could provide that wide gaze as well.
One of the things that the Diversity Committee is working on is aiming to create a laneway, or at least open a laneway, so that we can connect underrepresented photographers to reps, and to essentially provide them earning potential and work. I guess my question for you is, how did you come to find and identify such a wide range of talent? I guess this question is a little self-serving, because Edwin is on the committee that is trying to create that laneway that I spoke about, but I'd love to hear how you.
Yeah. I was able to fairly organically be able to find my talent, because I was lucky enough to be at an ad agency where a lot of talent came to me. And if I just kept my gaze wide enough, I could see the diversity if I wanted, because it was there. It just, you have to have, like you said, you have to open the lane up, right? So part of that is the work of the artist, but giving them the lane is also really important. For me as an agent, giving that lane was attending APA reviews, and all reviews actually, and really focusing. I liked when I had, people like me at the reviews that wanted me, or, I wanted to be able to emerging. I'm a big, even when I was at Chiat Day, when we had reviews, I had a pretty big department. And one of the things of the review was, I didn't want us always working with the same agents and the same photographers. Like, we've got to be able to keep opening those lanes up, right? It's kind of our responsibility. Our responsibility is to bring great talent in and create, produce great creative. That was our job at Chiat. But I felt as, our production was also our job to keep those lanes really wide open. And one of the ways I did that at my department was, in the review, they had to each year work with maybe 3 or 4 new artists. And who were those artists and how did you find them? Because that allowed, you're researching them, you're going past the main portals of marketing, and you're going a little further. We did a lot of reviews for Brooks and Art Center. We had a lot of interns. So, whatever little part we could do, but if we're all doing that part, that opens up the lane for a lot of people. For Bouverat Collective, I definitely love working with, Venice Arts. We had an intern from there. Because they help underrepresented, they help marginalized children actually learn through art and photography. They're really great. We support them a lot. And Commune actually had a huge event there, and portions went there, and we actually got an intern from them for the event, and then ended up working with them for a while. I think the junior colleges are an amazing place for that too. So I've done panels at Santa Monica College, I've done things at Art Center. I think outreach is really, really important, because I think at that level, you are seeing more diversity now, because more people are being brave enough to say, I'm going to take that risk because I'm passionate about what I do. I'm passionate about photography, So, for me, I found people organically because I was lucky enough to see them through Chiat. And then, like Lauren, we were on a panel from when MOPLA, used to do Month of Photography. LA did panels. We were on a panel about actually marginalized artists. We were on a panel about that, and it was a non-binary. It was more of a a gender discussion than anything in that sense, and of color and of other areas. But I don't know. I'm always curious, and I like making a connection. DP, I found, because she waited in line to meet with me at at another event. I forget the name of who was hosting that. Behance, I think, was hosting an event, and she waited, and I did a review, and I got to meet her, and we connected. So kind of, I tried not to, probably to the detriment of my business a little bit in the beginning. I tried not to choose my people for the money they could make me. I tried to choose them for the long-term connection and relationship and career building we could have.
Well, I think this is a really great segue to talk about portfolio reviews, specifically in terms of what do you advise photographers to do to prepare their portfolios and to present their work to clients. What are some of the things that you talk to them about?
I mean, I used to before COVID and before people were were able to have meetings in offices and had portfolio review policies and shows, I talked to them about the voice that came through their portfolio, the quality of the work in the portfolio, the passion that needs to come through the work, and the level of work. And it's tough. It's tough. You can't just put tear sheets in. You've got to really curate a beautiful story that you're going to tell when you go into a place, and take someone's time, because, producers and crews are also trying to keep their jobs, doing all the things they're been tasked to do. They're not tasked to look at portfolios. That's something they do so they can do their job better. And we task ourselves, they task themselves with it, but it's not something, typically in my agencies, they didn't understand why we would spend so much time doing that sometimes, because it just looked like we were looking at pretty books. So I think that, it's important to have a voice, but having that voice and conveying that voice, it's tougher now, right? Because honestly, I've not told my photographers to make a portfolio. There's nowhere to take the portfolio and show it, really. I'm a big fan, if you get an in-person meeting, iPad is great. Put a beautiful presentation together on an iPad. I even love a website presentation that, you can make a page where it feels like a process, a presentation. I'm probably the least of, we use them for treatments, of course, a lot, and stuff, PowerPoint or InDesign or Google Slides, it can be, you can get creative with them and they can be interesting, but I just think it has to be beautifully curated still, and it has to be engaging, and it has to show your voice. It has to be memorable. When I looked at portfolios at Chiat, I could remember portfolios from years back, because every time we're all visual people, and it's sad we don't have that tangible connection with the work anymore, because when I looked at a portfolio and I flipped through, I felt the paper, I saw the tonality of the imagery, the cover, the text, it all resonated. And I could remember when I was looking, I'm like, oh yeah, there was that one where they had that series, or they had that, it's much harder to do that digitally. So having that curation and that voice, it's tougher, but it's not impossible. And it's just a different way of showing it. I'm going to revert, just to go back a second on like, what did Bouverat do, or what did the collective do? More to help diversity, but I think what did I personally want to do to help diversity, and is to create a better way for connecting producers and creatives with the artists. And that is what Commune is. Commune, Komyoon, is a platform that Christine Wilson and I founded in 2019. And it started with an app. It was a research that we did based on our, jobs as director of art production at Ogilvy. I was at Chiat. Years she was exec producing at different agencies after that. I became an agent. All of that experience led us to the understanding that the current marketing situations were not geared towards diversity. We're not geared towards allowing a wider gaze, because financially prohibitive and just awareness, was different. And also paper, all of that. And we did this before COVID. So we launched with an app. That app was really about creating ways that producers and creatives could search. Search is the key. Search is the way you find the right person for your work. So we spent a lot of time on that. I bring this in the diversity conversation only because one of my really, really important goals was to have a way to search BIPOC, LGBTQIA, gender, location, all of that. And we offer all of that in our platform. We offer it in a way that allows it to be beautifully, searched and disseminated and gathered and followed, and just so that the producers and creatives, it's a workspace for them to be able to do better. And we constantly try to, when we curate lists for that, we really keep that gaze wide. We're very aware of that. So that was my way of trying to do a bigger part than just what I could do with my agency. And one of the things that I would love to do, and that, is something what you guys just talked about, is that to offer reviews and offer, but I think it has to come from a source. Like, it can't be me as an agent at, Bouverat, because it's a little bit self-serving in that way. But if you're, offering reviews through an organization like the APA, bring in people that can do the reviews and help, kind of create that lane and think of new ways. I want us to all think out of the box, because then COVID hit and all of a sudden nobody has desks, nobody's looking at paper, no one's getting promos, no one's, it's much, much harder. And so having digital ways showcase your voice, to be a part of a shared community and workspace, I passionately felt that was really, really important.
So it sounds like you have a multi-pronged effort really to help underrepresented photographers get their work in front of multiple eyes. So you do that through Commune, and then you do that through the Bouverat Collective. I guess at this point, I'd love stories in terms of how you've seen that play out, or specifically if you want to talk about the Bouverat Collective in terms of how you've created or how you've helped to create more opportunities for these folks.
I mean, I guess on Commune, I'll say I did the APA reviews for LA, I think APA LA last year or the year before, maybe. Time goes so fast. And I met a wonderful, talented artist named Nick Rich. And I was so impressed with her, and she was working so hard and hustling, but like so passionate, and like she just struck me. I was like, first of all, your work is great, but she's emerging, she's learning, she's growing. And I'm a tough critic, so it's not like just because you're a person of color or female, you get to be, you know, part of. You still have to earn it, and you still have to like.
I've reviewed with you, I know. But you're such a great, very direct, and you provide such very constructive thoughts.
Thank you. Gosh, I hope it was helpful, and I see your work now, so I don't know, maybe I had a little part in it. But she, you know, she was just really, I just loved everything about her, but attitude too. And a lot of that is who you are and how you represent yourself in these meetings is very, very important. She came to the table with hard work. She came to the table with really great, you know, projects that she had worked on. And so we offered her, she's on the platform right now, pro bono, because we love her work and we want to bump it and we want to show it. And, you know, we gave her a year, we're like, and we'll do that here and there because there's just people we come across that I think need that, you know, need to be surfaced. I also believe like, it's not a marketing, like, whatever the marketing tool you're using, that's from La Book to, you know, Adage, Workbook, Commune, whatever you're using, it's not our job to get you the job. It's our job to surface your work and make sure you're seen, that your work is being viewed, it's being put on lists. It is so hard to get on a list. And for us to get you on a list, that's important. But then getting the job, that's your work's job. Your work needs to, we can't do that. No matter how hard we work, we're never going to get you the job because that has to be what you do and what your visual storytelling gets, you know. So it's one is being surfaced as much as you can be. You should be on multiple platforms, right? Then two, so which is a reason we made Commune as affordable as we could make it, because we didn't want that to be a pay to play. We wanted it to be a place, emerging artists, diverse artists, great art. You know, you should be on multiple platforms, and for a coffee, a less than a coffee, Starbucks coffee a day, you can be, you know. So if you're serious about your business, you know, I have so many times we'll talk to artists and they'll be like, well, how many jobs have you gotten, people? I'm like, I don't track that because that's not important. You know, that's not the point. And if that's, you think this much money is going to get you a job, I don't know how to, you know, help that. But being on multiple platforms is important. But the other thing is to like really, oh my gosh, I lost my train of thought for a minute. What?
So I was taking notes actually, because you're giving us this really wonderful list. And because the original question is how you help photographers, how you help put their work in front of people and how you help them get jobs.
Yes.
And
no. Thank you. I got distracted with that other comment. But you know, getting on a list is really hard. So your work has to really get you further and further and further. So first, get in there somewhere to be surfaced. Get it, multiple platforms, get surfaced. Then your work has to be curated well enough to speak to the types of jobs you want to get, right? So that's going to get you on a list. You know how hard it is to get on a list? When I was like, I looked at hundreds of photographers and then I made a list of 50. Getting on that list of 50, that means your work is good. Then you go from that list of 50 is just the person curating the list, you know, whether we're at Commune or at an agency or art producer or brand, they're making this list of people to consider and put in front of their decision maker, creative director, brand director, client, right? I used to take my list, go up to my creatives, sit there and walk them through. I would have the books out and we'd either walk through every book and talk, or we then go through websites and talk. Now it's like flip through a gallery, if it's on Commune, or send them links, whatever. We would go through that list and then we would narrow it down to 3 to get, and that's the bid, the triple bid, right? To get in a triple bid, I say, is a win. You just won. You just got in front of decision maker. Your work is so good, you're being asked to bid. I think you should always look at it like that. This industry is so tough and so full. You made it all the way to the bid, and the bid is a win. And then you got to write a great treatment. You got to have a great creative call. You got to get a great production partner with you. Maybe you have an agent who's also part of that partnership. And if you don't have an agent and you are up for a fairly large size job, or a job that needs, maybe bring an agent on to help consult with you, or work with the producer, but put your team together properly, because experience shows, preparedness shows, passion shows, all of that comes together. And all of that magic formula, here's your winner. Here's the person who got the job. It is tough, but all of that is the work you put in, right? That is the work. You can't be stuck all the way down here going, I can't afford that this year. If you want to be a commercial artist, stop having the coffee and get in some places you're surfacing. The surfacing is what's important. Then the work, having great work is important first, but then getting in and we curate Commune. We've turned away thousands of photographers because they're not ready yet. And, our workspace is for professional art and commerce, artists, and the people who are looking at them are need to trust us, so and that's where I think some working with, because, there are people who are almost ready, who are gonna be ready. And I want those guys to have opportunities too, not to just get completely, disheartened and turn away from a passion. But sometimes just having a passion is not enough, so it's a balance. But then sometimes those people become great in other areas. They make great producers because they have a good eye, or they become a great agent, or this is an amazing industry and there's so many opportunities. And sometimes just not being able to get action or
Got it. Wow. Yes, I think you're right. There are so many different ways to be in the industry. And I think some people prefer to be the photographer, but then there are all of these other avenues and other, I guess, side roads that will take you to the lane. Is that going with that metaphor? So my next question for you is about, I suppose it's a twofold question, because I'm thinking about how the industry has changed over the last few years, but I'm also thinking about some of the things that you've seen since starting the Bouverat Collective. Can you share with us some stories and some of the things that have surprised you or some of the things that you've experienced since starting the collective?
Some of the things that have surprised me, I cannot share. They're just too shocking. But I think some of the things that have pleasantly surprised me is are we talking since COVID or just since I started the collective, which is over 7 years? So, and I would say nothing really surprised me in the first few years. Actually, one thing that really surprised me, I thought I had a leg up because I was the head of art production at Chiat. I knew every agent. I had photographers calling. I was, I was like, oh, I'm going to be an agent. I already know all these people. I know all these art producers. I hired a lot of them and now they run departments. Oh, no. Oh, no, 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 no. I didn't get jobs for that reason at all. And that's fine. I shouldn't have. But I also thought, okay, well, this is my, like, leg up a little of some. Oh, no. Once people are in their jobs and they're working, they're busy, they're focused. And it is literally about who is surfacing at the time. I've had people say to me, oh my God, I forgot to look on your website, because I hadn't sent them anything for whatever number of, or I hadn't made the connection or whatever it was. I think it was really about, that was a big lesson to me, that I've got to really have strategy and business kind of, acumen, and in knowing that I have to keep targeting the types of people I want to work with. I have to look for new, you can't rest on your laurels, basically, right? So that was surprising me. And I really learned a good lesson that, I got to keep hustling all the time. And then with COVID, what I really loved and surprised the hell out of me was actually then kind of this reverse. All of a sudden, when COVID hit and things started shut down and then maybe slightly opened back up, but with a lot of precaution, a lot of care, I started getting all the calls from the people that knew me and trusted me because of the relationships we built. That relationship, and then my artists started getting calls for that reason too, because if you work hard and you're trusted, I think when it comes down, like when you don't have to worry about anything, you're kind of free with the, decision making. But when you really have to be careful and you really have to be deliberate, I think you go to the people you trust and have great relationships with. So build those relationships, and really, they may not always pay off, but they did. A lot of people that I heard from and that I got to work with came through that door. And that was very surprising, pleasantly surprising. And I was really grateful for that during COVID. And I also, I think my artists and I used that really to then, keep our gaze wide open in the crew we hire and the people we work with and the producers, and really just building good connections that have a diversity, it was important. The thing maybe that I recently feel like has been very unpleasantly surprising. I felt like when Black Lives Matter happened with COVID, there was every agency, every brand, every person, primarily white and primarily male, not female. This I thought was interesting too. And this is just my perspective. Really put their voice out and really said, this is the time. We've got to make these changes. We've got, and there were all these big groups being formed and like agencies, there was, I forget this one big one that was happening where it was like, all about talking about diversity in the industry and really DEI, right? All over the place, which I thought was, oh, wow, that's cool. Like, okay, let's all get on board and, shine a light more on women and shine a light more on people of color and LGBTQIA. Let's do it all, and if Black Lives Matter is the one that, like right now, this is, how do we do that, for talent, for crew, for, all of those things, but everyone's making their intention clear now. And so we're widening the gaze. That was the goal, I felt. And that was always my goal. So I was like, oh yay, now this is all our goal. So things are going to change and we're going to see different people getting the jobs and different. And I will say that maybe in the first year, it felt like that was happening. But right now, I see the same people getting those jobs that got them 5 years ago. And I think a lot of that is our industry with agents is got a pretty big stronghold on how the communication happens and and it is hard to get producers to get out of their easy lane of like, I trust these people. And it goes back to, but like to then go do the research and find other, ways of keeping those lanes open. I feel like those lanes got narrow again. And it's disappointing, you know?
Yes, I think I completely agree with you. I think it's the reckoning that never was. You know, it was talked about, but it never came around. So it's really disheartening, but I think the only thing to do is to keep pushing forward. I don't know, I don't quite have a response, but to your point though, what I found has been a little bit different is how I deal with microaggressions on set or even in chemistry calls. And I always wonder how to go about handling that and about the language that I can use when those instances come up. And my question for you is how do you either coach your artist, or what do you say when situations like that come up?
Yeah, and then I'm just looking over here on the attendees, primarily women, and I know a few of them. So I think, like, you know, I push forth that even I have a hard time with that discussion. Like, I'm a woman of color as an agent. I push forth a diverse roster, you know, with women and people of color and as much diverse as I can get, but like, we can't use that to get the job, you know? And so when we're in that creative call, but I coach mine to say, who you are is important. And if who you are is the way you present yourself or the way you speak, the way you, I want all that. I want us to get the job for that reason. But, and then if you're, you know, but nobody on my roster wants to get a job because they're a woman. And we get a lot of requests we're looking for an all woman crew. We're looking for all, you know, we get LGBTQI, which I don't have, but I can help research that through Commune. We've gotten that request a number of times. Latinx, LGBT, you know, we get that and we build the list and we share the list. You know, all female, whatever, we share that list. You know, all Black, we share that list. But I have all of my artists want to get the jobs based on themselves and their work, and not Black, not because they're a woman, not because they're LG, you know, non-binary. And I don't know how to get around that, because we want to widen the lane, but we don't want to we just want to be seen, and we want more people to we want access to the opportunities, right? So when we're on it, I don't tell them to be any different or bring anything up that other than be yourself, and let's bring it the way we are. And we are and I've had producers who've been on call say, yeah, other agents are not like that, or yeah, that's not how the creative call goes, because we're very bold and open and colorful, and you know, and we bring all that to the table, and it's not for everyone. You know, so I think for me, I would just, the thing I tell them the most is be who you are and celebrate who you are, you know.
Oh, well, I really enjoyed this conversation with you, Jigisha. Thank you so much for sharing. I've been taking notes throughout this conversation. And maybe as a follow-up, I will do a little bit of a recap on our IG. So thank you so much. I think that we will turn the attention towards questions. I'm not sure if we have any questions that have come in.
Not yet. But everyone in the chat, feel free to add them in the chat so we can read them.
Hi, Auntie. Hi, Michelle. Hi, Jess. Jill. I can't see all of them.
I recognize some of those names too. Hi, Christy. Well, I suppose we could keep chatting. I have questions.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, fantastic. I guess one of the questions I have for you is about your journey through the
Oh,
industry. And
Christy said chat is disabled, but it's fine.
oh, is chat disabled? Oh, hold on a second.
I'm looking into it.
Oh, there's a Q&A. There, I can see the Q&A. Hold on a second. Let me. Oh, perhaps people have to answer through the Q&A.
Oh no, I see. Yeah, now I see Christy
Sure.
in there.
Yeah, maybe they ask through the Q&A.
But I'm sorry, I interrupted your question.
Oh yeah, so I was going to ask you about how you've had such a wide-ranging career, especially stumbling into a career that you didn't anticipate would be a career. And I guess I'm curious as to what the you from years ago when you started out, and I took notes as a how you used to be so you were a history minor, you wanted to be a writer, you were an art history minor.
Art history minor.
Yes, you were an art history minor, you love photography, and you started out as an account person, and then you eventually worked your way up at Chiat Day. Can you tell me about what that young Jigisha, who first started at Chiat Day, what would she think about what you're doing now?
Wow. You make me cry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I think that she'd be really happy and proud, and I know that I feel very fortunate to have the career I've had, and it wasn't easy, but it was I think sometimes in the right place at the right time, but I also worked really hard and have a really hard work ethic. So I think she would be like, not have ever imagined at the time that I would ever run my own business. The Jigisha that was, the receptionist or the project manager, working, I worked really well for people. I really, loved having a boss. But then I got the chance to become the head of a department. And that's when I really realized, you underestimate yourself, especially when you're young. You don't. And I remember the first meetings I went into as a department head, I would walk into this meeting and be like all these men and like maybe one other woman. I don't even remember the first, like the head of broadcast was a man, the CFO was a man, the CEO was a man. I think the head of print production might have been she was a woman. So walking into those rooms, one being a woman, younger woman, and then one being a woman of color, everyone else was white, and like sitting so quietly for like the first years, and listening and learning, but then saying my piece and then learning to fight for things and fight for people and salaries and growing that way. I think, you just underestimate yourself, and I don't think that Jigisha would ever have thought, I'd be running departments, but I learned that through the positions I had and the people I got to work for. And I did learn, I think she would say like, this is a really great, I'm glad you're where you are, like that I think that's what she would say to me, because I didn't give up, and I actually, commune is not easy. It's a dream, and it's a startup, and it's hard, and I'm 55, and what the fuck, sorry. So like, it's, I think, she would say, good for you.
Thank you for sharing that. We have a question from Jill. Jill says, as an Indian woman, you said you weren't exposed to the art commerce career path. How would you go about reaching other youths in your footsteps?
Yeah, and that's such a nice question, Jill. I tried that through, I think, like through the community colleges. more under marginalized areas. And you know, the Indian community necessarily isn't economically lower in the sense of like they have the opportunity to get the education. Just my dad would be like, you ain't not gonna try to go, you know, like you can be a doctor, an engineer, a lawyer, you know. So it's a different perspective there. But I think for me, it's more just showcasing the opportunities of this career in places where there are younger emerging talent and people. And I think ultimately you have to have the passion to even crack the door and look inside, right? So if you look inside, I hopefully you can, you know, connect with the right people and get to learn more about it. I do a lot through internships, and I really look outside the main areas for internships, so I can try to, like, it's one by one, but it, you know, it makes a difference. Yeah, I think it's hard because you still have to be able to, like, I was looking for an intern recently, and I don't know, you know, I'm not finding the right fit, and there just doesn't seem to be a place right now, right? It's weird. Like, I don't, because I'm trying to find, you know, so I might go back to the other like ways that, like Venice Arts or, you know, the community colleges, probably because I tend to like that the best, or word of mouth, you know, is also great.
Have you heard of the Posse Foundation?
No. See, there's so
So
many.
the Posse Foundation, I think they operate throughout the US, but essentially they provide opportunities for underrepresented youths to go to college or go to university, and usually they provide them with a full ride. So that might be a good way, and they might have some kind of an internship program in place. I'm not quite sure. I haven't looked into them for a few years.
Well, and we definitely want to do on Commune sort of an emerging kind of diversity level, you know, where we can, depending if, you know, on the work and reviewing it, to give, you know, a place for that work to maybe start being seen. And, you know, you go in and you know, producers and creatives can know that this is a different category, you know, but that these are people to keep your eye on, or maybe you want them to come and intern, or maybe a photographer wants them to, or an agent or produce, you know, but these are people trying to become content creators, photographers, directors in the industry, you know. And sometimes it helps to be able to at that really, you know, like what Joe was saying, like at that very entry level, you know, it helps to, and or being part of APA, you know, all of those things.
It's one of the things that we at the diversity committee, that's our goal, to create that pipeline, and we're doing it through several ways, but doing it from inside agencies, as well as working with youth, and also working with emerging artists. So there's a lot to come that we're doing.
Yeah. Well,
let me see if we have any more questions. I think that was our last question. Edwin, do you have anything else that you want to say?
Well, I'm very astonished by all of the information you have shared with us. It's just such an inspiration to listen to everything you have said. And, you know, there are many artists like myself that has come from Latin American countries with that dream to one day become a photographer in the US. And, you know, it's really hard. And, like, you know, it resonated a lot to me, everything you have said today. And I hope that many of them listen, or the future listeners of this, get inspired that, you know, there is possibilities to see women like you know, leading by the example. So to me, it's more that the inspiration that you bring us today, and it's such an honor to listen to everything you have said. So thank you for everything.
I feel very passionately about it, and I'm happy to help, and I'd love to help with your diversity committee. So.
We'll keep you to your word.
Yes.
Well, we'll reach out. Well, Jigisha, thank you so much for coming on and for chatting with us. This was so wonderful. And before everyone goes, I just wanted to repeat some of the suggestions that you have for making sure that as we are showing our portfolio to producers, to buyers, that we have to show our voice in our portfolio, that our passion has to come through. We have to really create a beautiful portfolio, and that the job is for us, the photographer, to get the job. And we have to be on multiple platforms. It's our work to get the job once again. And we have to curate our work and market ourselves so that people can find us.
And I'll add to this, you have to have a marketing budget. Like if you're serious about this, and you go and do the reviews and you see what people say about your work. That's the first step. I think if you want to be a commercial artist, first thing you should spend your money on is go to a PhotoWorks, Palm Springs Photo, APA, get a review, right? Or to individuals, get a review of your work and hear it and listen to it. And then think, okay, I got some critiques that I don't know if I can overcome, or I can overcome these critiques, and I want to be a commercial. The second thing is look at your inspiration. Find artists that you admire that are working, and look at how they're doing it, because there's a success pattern there. So follow that success pattern. And then make sure you have a good marketing, because this is a business. You want to make money so you can do what you love. So you've got to spend a little money. You've got to market yourself. You can't just expect other people to do it. It's got to be about and you've got to create new work, and you've got to be a content maker. And in this world, there's so many things. So, it's like, one, you have to really know, am I good enough to be here? And am I getting the right critiques? Am I fitting this industry? Is my work relevant enough? Is it going to get me on the list to the triple bid and win the job, right? So that's the first step. And then the rest is about just being a really smart business person.
There isn't a mic. I do have a mic for my podcast, which is right over here. I'm gonna drop the mic. Hold on. Let me drop it. Mic drop. That was amazing. Thank you so much. I took notes. I'm sure other people have taken notes, and I'm floored. I'm so pleased. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys for having me. It was a pleasure. It's great to see all of you on the attendee list. I'll see you all soon.
Thank
Bye,
you
everyone.
for joining.
Have a good night.